Hello, my friends, and welcome back to another CPL First Chapter. My name is Mariah, and today I read Molly Moon's incredible book of Hypnosis by Georgia Byne. This book was very interesting. What grabbed my attention when I saw this was actually the pug. I love pugs. So I was like, I have to give this a read. I have to read the first chapter to see what it's about. So Molly Moon is the main character, and she is an orphan. She was left on the doorstep of an orphanage in a cardboard box, and she was raised into this orphanage. So Molly Moon is now living in a place called Hardwick Home Orphanage, and she's been picked on by the other kids. She doesn't have a whole lot of friends. She has one friend named Rocky because they grew up together, and he was also abandoned and brought into an orphanage. But this book follows Molly Moon. She finds a mysterious book on hypnotism, and she discovers that she can make people do whatever she wants with this book. And because of that, she causes a lot of trouble. So we will see what kind of trouble Molly gets into in this book. So we will go right into the first chapter. Thanks for watching, guys. Molly Moon's Incredible Book of Hypnotism by Georgia Byne. Chapter 1. Molly Moon looked down at her pink, blotchy legs. It wasn't the bathwater that was making them molten like spam. They were always that color, and so skinny. Maybe one day, like an ugly duckling turning into a swan, her knock-knee legs might grow into the most beautiful legs in the world. Some hope. Molly leaned back until her curly brown hair and her ears were under the water. She stared at the fly-speckled yellow paint that was peeling off the wall and the damp patch on the ceiling where strange mushrooms grew. Water filled her ears, and the world sounded foggy and far away. Molly shut her eyes. It was an ordinary November evening, and she was in a shabby bathroom in a crumbling building called Hardwick Home Orphanage. She imagined flying over it like a bird, looking down at its gray slate roof and its bramble-filled garden. She imagined flying higher until she was looking down on the hillside where Hardwick Village lay. Up and up she went until Hardwick House became tiny. She could see the whole of the town of Brayersville beyond it. As Molly flew higher and higher, she saw the rest of the country, and now the coastline too. The sea, with the sea on all sides. Her mind rocketed upward until she was flying in space, looking down at the earth. And there she hovered. Molly liked to fly away from the world in her imagination. It was relaxing. And often, it was in this state that she felt different. Molly had a special feeling tonight, as if something exciting or strange were about to happen to her. The last time she felt special, she found a half-eaten packet of candy on the pavement in the village. The time before, she got away with 2 hours of evening television instead of 1. Molly wondered what surprise would greet her this time. Then she opened her eyes and she was back in the tub. She looked at her distorted reflection on the underside of the chrome tap. Oh dear, surely she wasn't as ugly as that. Was that pink lump of dough her face? Was that potato her nose? Were those small green lights her eyes? Someone was hammering downstairs. That was strange. No one ever mended anything in Hardwick House. Then Molly realized that the hammering was somebody banging on the bathroom door. Trouble. Molly shot up and hit her head on the tap. The banging outside was very loud, and with it came a fierce bark. Molly Moon, open this door at once. If you don't, I'll be forced to use a master key. Molly could hear the keys rattling on a ring. She looked at the level of her bathtub and gasped. It was much too deep and well over the allowed level. She pulled the plug and wrapped herself in a towel. Just in time, the door swung open. Miss Adderstone was in and darting to the bathtub. Her scaly nose wrinkled as she discovered the deep, draining water. She rolled up her polyester sleeve and pushed the plug back in. As I suspected, she hissed, intentionally flaunting the orphanage rules. Miss Adderstone's eyes glinted spitefully as she took a tape measure from her pocket. She pulled the metal strip out, making excited slurry noises. Was that it? She pulled the metal strip out and making excited slurry noises as she sucked on her loose false teeth. She measured how far Molly's bath had gone over the red line painted around the sides of the bathtub. Molly's teeth chattered. Her knees were now turning blue and blotchy, and the palms of her hands were beginning to sweat, as they always did whenever she was excited or nervous. Miss Adderstone shook the tape measure, dried it on Molly's shirt, then snapped it shut. Molly braced herself to face a whirly spinster, who, with her short gray hair and hairy face, looked more like a mister than a missus. Your bath is 30 centimeters deep, Miss Adderstone announced, allowing for the amount that had already been defiantly ran out while I was knocking on the door. I calculated your bath was actually 40 centimeters deep. You know the baths are only supposed to be 10 centimeters deep. Your bath was 4 times that deep. So you have, in effect, used up your next 3 baths. So, Molly, you are forbidden to have a bath for the next 3 weeks. As for your punishment, Miss Adderstone picked up Molly's toothbrush. Molly's heart sank. She knew what was coming next. Miss Adderstone glared at Molly with her dull black eyes. Her face heaved in a monstrous way as her tongue dislodged her teeth and moved them around in her mouth before setting them back on her gums. She thrusted the toothbrush at Molly. This week, you will be toilet monitor. I want the toilet spotless, Molly, and this is the brush you'll be using. And don't even think you can get away with using the toilet brush because I will be watching you. Miss Adderstone gave one last satisfied suck on her teeth and left the room. Molly slumped down onto the side of the tub. So the something that she felt was going to happen tonight was simply trouble. She stared at her worn-out toothbrush, hoping that her friend Rocky would let her share his. As she picked at a loose thread on her balding old towel, she wondered what it would be like to be wrapped up in a fluffy white towel like the ones in TV ads. Softness is a sign, everyone feels fine. Wash your towels in cloud 9. Molly loved ads. They showed how comfortable and happy life could be, filled with friends who were always happy to see Molly when she visited them in her mind. Wrap yourself in luxury time, cloud 9. Molly was shaken from her toweled daydream as the evening assembly bell rang. Molly winced. She was late as always late, forever in trouble. The other kids called her Molly Accident Zone, or Zono, because she was so clumsy and accident prone. Her other nicknames were Gerono, since people said Molly's voice made them fall asleep, and bog eyes, because her eyes were dark green and close together. Only Rocky, her best friend, and some of the younger orphans called her Molly. Molly, Molly! Molly put her pajamas on quickly and opened the bathroom door. Across the corridor, which was now being stampeded by children rushing downstairs, Molly saw Rocky's dark brown face, framed with black curls, beckoning her to hurry as she crossed the corridor. Two older boys, Roger Fibbin and Gordon Boyles, pushed her roughly aside. Get out of the way, Zono! Move it, Drono! Quick, Molly, said Rocky. We can't be late again. Adderstone will have a fit. Mind you, then, he added, she might choke on her false teeth. Molly smiled. Rocky always knew how to cheer her up. He knew her so well. Both Molly and Rocky had arrived at Hardwick House 10 summers ago, a white baby and a black baby. Molly had been found in a cardboard box on the doorstep, while Rocky had been found in a baby carriage in the parking garage behind Brewersville Police Station. And for all children, she didn't like babies most. To her, they were noisy, smelly, squelchy creatures, and the idea of changing a diaper filled her with disgust. So Miss Trinklebury, a widow from the town, had been employed to look after Molly and Rocky. And because Miss Trinklebury named the children after the clothes or carriers they arrived in, like Moses Wicker, who had been found in a wicker basket, or Satin Night, who come dressed in a night tie with satin ribbons, Molly and Rocky were given exotic names too. Molly's surname, Moon, had become from Moon's marshmallows, which had been printed in pink and green on the sides of the cardboard box cradle. When Miss Trinklebury found a lolly stick in the box, she called the baby Lolly Moon. And after Miss Adderstone forbade Lolly as a name, Lolly Moon became Molly Moon. Rocky's name came directly from the red baby carriage. On the hood had been written the Scarlet Rocker. Rocky's deep, husky baby voice, together with his good looks, made Miss Trinklebury say that one day he will be a rock star, singing love songs to ladies. And so she named the baby boy Rocky Scarlet. Miss Trinklebury wasn't very clever, but her sweet center made up for her simple nature, and it was very lucky that she had taken care of Molly and Rocky when they were little, because with only bitter Miss Adderstone in charge, they might have grown up thinking the whole world was bad and have turned bad themselves. Instead, they were bounced on fat Miss Trinklebury's knee, and they fell asleep to her singing. She made them laugh and wiped their eyes when they cried. And at night, if ever they asked why they had been doorstep babies, she told them that they were orphans because a naughty cuckoo had knocked them out of their nests. Then she'd sing them a mysterious lullaby. It went like this. Forgive, little birds, that brown cuckoo, pushing you out of your nest. It's what Mama Cuckoo taught it to do. She taught it that pushing was best. Molly and Rocky ever felt cross with their parents, whoever they were, for abandoning them, Miss Trinkleberry's song would make them feel better. But Miss Trinkleberry didn't live at the orphanage anymore. As soon as Molly and Rocky were out of diapers, she had been sent away. Now she came back only once a week to help with cleaning and laundry, and the older children had to take care of the younger children. Night was drawing in. In the distance, Molly heard the squawk of a cuckoo clock in Miss Adderstone's room striking 6. "We're really late," she said, tearing her dressing gown from the hook of the door. "She's gonna have a tantrum," Rocky agreed as they sprinted down the passage. Expertly, they skidded around the corner on the polished linoleum floor and long jumped down the stairs. Quietly, they tiptoed across the checkered stone floor of the hall past the TV room and towards the oak-paneled assembly room. They slunk in. 9 children, 4 of them under 7 years old, were lined up against the walls. Molly and Rocky joined at the end of the line, near 2 friendly 5-year-olds, Ruby and Jinx. Hoping that Miss Adderstone hadn't reached their names on the roster yet, Molly glanced at the unfriendly older faces opposite to her. Hazel Haxberry, the meanest girl in the orphanage, narrowed her eyes at Molly. Gordon Boyles made the motion of cutting his throat with an imaginary knife. "Ruby Abel?" said Miss Adderstone. "Yes, Miss Adderstone," piped up a tiny Ruby beside Molly. "Gordon Boyles?" "Here, Miss Adderstone," said Gordon, making a face at Molly. "Jinx and Ames?" "Yes, Miss Adderstone," a little boy said. "Roger Fibbin?" Here, Miss Adderstone," said the tall, thin boy who stood next to Gordon, eyeing Molly maliciously. "Hazel Haxberry." "Here, Miss Adderstone." Molly was relieved. Her name was next. "Gary Oakley." "Here, Miss Adderstone," said 7-year-old Gary, thrusting his hands into his pocket, where he could feel his pet mouse trying to escape. "Cynthia Redmond." "Here, Miss Adderstone," said Cynthia, winking at Hazel. Molly wondered when her own name would pop up. Miss Adderstone seemed to have skipped it. "Craig Redmond." "Here, Miss Adderstone," grunted Cynthia's twin. "Gemma Pastel." "Here, Miss Adderstone." "Rocky Scarlet." "Here," Rocky said. Miss Adderstone slammed the register shut. "As usual, Molly Moon is not here." "I'm here now, Miss Adderstone." Molly could hardly believe it. Miss Adderstone must have read her name first and intentionally called her out. "Now doesn't count," said Miss Adderstone, her lips twitching. "You will be on dishwasher duty tonight. Edna will be pleased to have the night off." Molly squeezed her eyes shut with regret. After the last blessing prayer, the dinner gong sounded, and the heavy dining room door swung open. The orphans shuffled through, welcomed tonight by a disgusting smell of old fish. They seen the fish earlier that week, laying in plastic crates in the alley outside of the kitchen, scuttling with flies and beetles. And everyone knew that Edna, the orphanage cook, would have baked the fish in a thick, greasy cheese and nut sauce to disguise its rotten taste, a trick that she'd learned in the Navy. There Edna stood, broad and muscular, with her curly gray hair and flattened nose, ready to make sure every child ate up. With a tattoo of a sailor on her thigh, although this was only a rumor, and her terrible language, Edna was a grumpy pirate. Every single child felt nervous and sick as they stood in line while Edna slopped out smelly helpings. "I'm allergic to fish, Edna," said Molly. "Load up, bleedin' cold swallop," came Edna's gruff reply, as she wiped her nose on her overall sleeve and then dolloped out an extra helping. "It is codswallop," Molly whispered to Rocky, looking down at her fish. The idea that something special might happen to her tonight was now entirely gone. Instead, the evening was going to be just like the others. There would be nothing good to eat, no treats, and the hours before bedtime would be laced with trouble.